Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Psychopath in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Let's play e4. I almost reached for my d-pawn, but I thought better of it just at the last moment. Okay, let's play knight c3 this time. We played knight d2 in a game the other day. And knight c6. All right, I faced this one time recently, so let me proceed with caution and try to remember what to do. Okay, so here I can play either bishop d3 or bishop b5. I can also play e5 if I want. Or not bishop b5, he takes on e4. Strike that one. e5. e5 is tempting, but I kind of want to play just bishop d3, if I'm quite honest. I think this is a safer move. He's going to go after my light square bishop, but that's all right. I think the fact that it takes black a few tempos to eat this bishop makes this acceptable from white's point of view. So do I play rook e1? Do I play maybe e5 now? e5 could be interesting. Now let's play rook e1. Preparing the bishop to retreat. And they're letting me do that. So if I want to play bishop f1, I can. Bishop f1, d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes, rook takes. That looks slightly better for white. Okay. Not sure what this knight is really accomplishing on b4, but Psychopath is coming at me with their pawns. Maybe take d5, because if I push e5, they get to retreat the knight back to d7. I don't think I'm getting much there, so let's take. Yeah, that structure with pawn on e5, pawn on d4 without the support of the c-pawn is nothing for white, so we'll do it this way. Maybe bishop g5 now, looking to apply pressure to f6 and sort of indirectly on c5. Also, if bishop f5, I can play rook c1 and I'll be defending the c-pawn, no problem. I'm hoping that this bishop might be somewhat overloaded. Here I have an interesting possibility of a3, knight c6, and then rook takes e7, although I don't think that's advisable. Let's just sink the knight into e5. If bishop f5, again, rook c1 can be played. No issues there. I'm not playing a3 quite yet because, frankly, I don't really see what the knight is doing on b4. Now I might want to consider playing it. It's not the only move, but it's a candidate. So a3, knight c6, maybe queen f3 then. Yeah, let's just get that knight out of here now that I'm looking to move my queen. But d4 would hang in that line, so after knight c6, I cannot play queen f3. I can play queen d2 maybe. Something like that, or knight takes c6, but not queen f3. Knight takes c6 and knight a4 is something I'm weighing right now as well. Okay, let's try that. Let's see if we can get the knight to a decent square. It's a little offsides at the moment, but I hope that's temporary. This bishop sort of has to do double duty, defending f6 and also observing the c5 square. I'm down a minute and a half already, though, so let's try to make this up. Bishop f5. So knight c5 takes... Rook takes e8. Okay, let's try it. Again, trying to move a little faster here. Maybe knight e4 is an equalizing attempt. Just trying to swap some pieces. Slow down, Psychopath. Let me get back in the game here, time-wise. If bishop takes, I think rook takes e8 is what I got to do. Okay, they're going to go for knight e4. So let's swap here, first of all. And then probably take again. I expect them to take with a rook. Takes with the bishop instead. Okay, queen e2, I'd be threatening f3. But that's not much to write home about. Maybe b3 is a way to go here. Yeah, let's do b3. And try to break up their structure, get some life for the bishop on this diagonal. My d4 pawn is potentially weak in playing this way, but we'll see if that matters. Okay, let's play queen d2. Connecting the rooks. Maybe queen a5 in the future could be helpful. In fact, yeah, let's do this move. I think I've got this taken care of. The rook on e1 is defended. I want to see if I can attack c6. Maybe play queen c5 and look to swap. Play for a better endgame. This bishop is awkward. I think black's going to want to move it at some stage soon. Probably they should do it right now if they're going to move it. They do not. Can I play f3? f3 takes, rook takes, rook takes. I have queen check at the end, so I think I can. I believe so. They might have miscalculated. What is this? Okay. So they win that pawn. But does that really matter? I don't know. I have a minute left, though, so let's just play to secure the position. c6 is very weak. I just want to blockade this pawn, first and foremost. Okay, so now we got that blockaded. That's good. Let's just play b4. They're going to be playing off our time big time now. Let's go here. They can play rook h5 and maybe try to create some threat against h2, but g3 should cover nicely. Let's target f7 for now. Switch our focus a little bit towards that f7 pawn. We're going to double up even. Okay, we'll take that. And go rook f1 next. 50 seconds. Should be plenty. Okay, queen there. Let's go here. Threatening queen d8 check. Okay, let's just make a luft move. They got out of that check. I think I can play queen c5 pretty much whenever I want. Now might be a good time to do that, now that they're pinned here. Also, we're hitting f5. We're hitting the rook and we're hitting f5 as well. So that seems to be good timing on that one. Let's play bishop here. Threaten to take with check. I think I can just take here. Check. That is the refutation. Queen takes, bishop takes check, and then we pick up the rook. Next move. Yeah, and this is going to be mate in 2. And Psychopath resigns. All right, so a quick playing opponent. They were very fast on that mouse, but to their detriment because they dropped a piece. At least it seems that way to me after f3. Maybe there's some way tactically black can make this more complicated and try to gain compensation, but it doesn't seem that way. Because if the bishop moves, we're taking e7, and then we're going queen d8 check after black recaptures. And that will be a fork. I think right around here, I have a slight positional advantage, because even though I have an isolated d-pawn, it doesn't look like black can attack it so easily, whereas c6 and a7 are both weak. But that said, I feel like black should not be in too much trouble if they play accurately. But they kept blitzing, and yeah, they went down to a tactic. And then after I won the piece, it was just kind of mopping up. Maybe black should have played rook takes e4, I don't know. Because d takes e4 separated their d-pawn from their c-pawn. And I possibly played it a little too safe here, but I just wanted to make sure that white's position would be safe and black's d-pawn, e-pawn wasn't running at any moment. I was wondering if black could, after queen c5, just trade on c5 and then play e3. I can play bishop e2, but they might hop on the d-file and try to cause some problems. But nah, that's probably not going to work with moves like bishop f3 always being possible. So let's go back and take a look. French defense. I mixed it up and played knight c3, and black played knight c6. So usually you see knight f6 or bishop b4, the Winnoware variation. You'll occasionally see d takes e4, the Rubinstein. But knight c6 is a line that I don't know thoroughly for white, but I have encountered before. And I might have even played this one time from the black side. I think when I played this Grandmaster Yevgeny Vasukov, this elderly Grandmaster, but still very strong, who plays here on ICC. And he beat me handily from the white side. And I think it was the same line. I tried the French, and he showed me the business. So I played knight f3, knight f6, and now there's tension here, black threatening to win a pawn. So I played bishop d3 just to defend. e5 is certainly tempting, advancing with tempo, but it's been my experience that after knight d7, black can play a quick f6 and try to undermine the center. I know there is some theory, bishop b5 can be played, and often it's timely for white to be able to attack this knight. But I wasn't sure, so I just played a developing move that also defends the center, bishop d3. And Psychopath responded with knight b4. I just castled. But surprisingly, they didn't take my light square bishop. They just let this bishop kind of hang out here, and I figured once we get this far, let's just drop it back. And now the engine wants to simplify and then play b6, looking to establish this light square bishop down the long diagonal. That plan crossed my mind, but I thought that white would probably be a little bit better in some structure like this. Maybe I can even use my rook aggressively, although it's probably unlikely that I'm going to be causing black too much harm with a move like rook g4. But instead, black played c5. I took on d5. Because if I advance with tempo, knight comes back here, and I mentioned that I didn't think this structure was great for white when there's a knight on c3 rather than a pawn. Because I would like my pawn here to support the center, so if black ever takes on d4, I can recapture with that pawn. But that's not the case here. So I just took. I was hoping for a small edge just based on black having an isolated pawn. Bishop g5, and then they advance c4. Okay, so maybe I missed a tactic here. Rook takes e7 instantly pops up on the computer evaluation. So that must mean rook takes e7, queen takes e7, a3. The black knight moves, and then knight takes d5. Probably leads to a great position for white. I saw that idea, but you know what made me reject it, or one of the reasons I rejected it? I only looked at a3 first. Here, and then rook takes e7. At least I think I only looked at this. Maybe I did look at rook takes e7 right away, but I remember thinking that in this case, black does not have to take with the queen. They could actually take with the knight and try to break the pin and guard d5. And as you can see, this favors black. But the immediate exchange sack would have been nice, because then, yep, a3 now, black retreats the knight, and now I take. And we have a minor piece plus a pawn for the rook. And black cannot take here. They would lose their queen. So the queen moves somewhere. Let's say back to d8, just so black can defend here. Or maybe better if they're going to do that, go to d6, let's say. And then I can trade on f6, damaging their pawns. They must take with the g-pawn. Let's say bishop h6, something like this. And possibly white can play to gain this pawn back. If rook d8, I guess they do attack d4. So the engine very much likes white's chances here. As a human assessing this, it doesn't look like a position that's plus over 1 for white when white is still down 1 point to material. But I do see my activity, and I like the fact that black's pawn structure around their king has been damaged. So, yeah, I wish I would have tried that. It would have spiced up the game, certainly. And it could just be flat out strong. Instead, I played knight e5. Black played rook e8. a3, kicked the knight back. And then I went for this and then knight a4. The computer doesn't like that so much. It actually gives black a slight edge now. So it wants to do bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. Knight takes d5. Wow. Does that work? What's the point? So queen takes d5. If knight takes c6, then just queen takes c6, and black is defending e8, right? So what's the deal? Oh, bishop takes c4 is the plan. Queen takes d5, bishop takes c4 must be the idea. And then I'm hitting f7 after the queen moves with a fork. Huh, that's an interesting line. Take, bishop takes, queen takes d4, bishop takes f7, king f8, this all looks forced. Bishop takes e8, queen takes d1, rook a takes. Now they take on e5 at the end. And we have an unbalanced position. So I have a rook plus 2 pawns for the 2 minor pieces. I guess I would slightly take white, although there's a lot of pieces left on board, so those minor pieces can do some damage. The engine rates it roughly equal. Actually, I'm not sure if I would prefer white. I mean, I've got a majority on both wings, but white is a long way from being able to activate and use that majority. Another interesting line, though. Yeah, I didn't see the knight takes d5, bishop takes c4 possibility. Instead, I just played to sink my knight into c5 soon. Bishop f5. Mistake according to the engine. So black played knight e4, but I thought there was a decent chance they would do this. Because if that happens and I just take back, then black can take here and then grab c2 at the end. And I think they just win a pawn. So my plan was to play, after bishop takes c5, rook takes e8 check, queen takes, and then take when c2 is guarded, but maybe they have something even here. Queen e5 is strong, defending the knight, making sure I can't shatter those pawns. Also attacking b2, c3, h6, and the computer prefers black. This b2 pawn could be a liability in the future. If black plays rook b8, this might be hard to defend. For one thing, I can't play rook b1 because of the bishop here. Yeah, probably this boils down to the difference in the light square bishops. My bishop is going to have a hard time finding a useful avenue into play. I can't take this pawn. That's partly why I played b3 in the game. I was trying to get the bishop working on this diagonal. So it seems this whole idea, knight a4 to c5, is too slow. It doesn't fit the demands of the position. It worked out well, but just because something works out in a game does not mean your idea was justified. So this all happened, and then we swapped. I thought they would take with a rook. I don't really see much point in taking with the bishop first for black, because they kind of wound up being pinned down the e-file anyways. So b3, I need to activate this piece. Take, take. And around here, it started to feel like I might have a tiny advantage. He doubled up, and I played the queen into a5, because I think I've got everything on lockdown on the king side, and I'm starting to probe these weaknesses. Notice how I haven't moved any of these pawns. I won't do that unless it clearly wins material, as in the game, or it's forced somehow. I don't want to give black more to bite on. All my major pieces, well, 2 of my major pieces are on the queen side. The rook is just kind of holding the fort along the e-file. I don't want black to get too many pieces going towards my king, and moving those pawns would help black potentially make contact with my structure. So I'm going to keep them back and just play really minimalistically on the king side. So here black played h6. I just brought the rook over to a useful file, bear down on the pawn. Yep, and queen g6 is a flat-out blunder. A 2-point blunder according to the engine. Black is only slightly worse if they just drop the bishop back and look to trade. It felt like black should move the bishop. And here, note that d8 is guarded by the black queen, so I don't have that. As long as they keep an eye on this and this, they might be suffering a little bit, but I think black should be fine on the whole. If I propose a trade here, I do have to worry about black's rook coming into e1. That's a key line right there. So I can't just trade and hope to long-term pressure here, because there might be a tactical response. And now I could be in trouble because bishop d3 is threatened. Yeah, this is not at all how I would like to play it. But black needs to move the bishop and try to swap some rooks. Get some play down the e-file. But yeah, now f3, and I think they're just losing material because, once again, the major tactical threat is this. Fork. So black played queen f6. I took. They took here check. And they took with the e-pawn, or with the d-pawn, rather, on e4. I thought maybe this move was better, but it does allow white to trade another pair of rooks. Somehow this looks scarier than what happened in the game, though, because these pawns are kept marching together. Black was still well ahead on time, but their position should be losing now. Yeah, I don't think swapping in e3 is anything to worry about. I can always just play bishop e2 and block the pawn's advance. Yeah, black's not going to be able to create enough counter threats here. This is one nice thing you can do when you're up material. That you can pester your opponent with trades because you know that they don't want to simplify the position. If they get into a simplified position, the material might be more relevant than it was with more pieces on board. So I'm just badgering black and saying, here, trade with me. And in doing so, I get to blockade this pawn and gradually force black back here. B4, just making sure my A pawn doesn't hang. I wasn't worried about these pawns. There might have been an opportunity to take either the A or the C pawn, but it felt more reliable to block the E pawn and just secure my position. And here I started going after F7. I think a better plan for them right around here would have been King H7, some king move, and then play for F5. Try to connect the pawns. Queen D4 is pesky, because now we're threatening Queen D8 check, forking the king and the rook. H3, just a good move, creating Luft. Yeah, and this was losing the F5 pawn. Bishop comes in, fork. And this loses tactically, but yeah, black didn't have much anyways. Note that if black trades, we take with the bishop check, and then we're going to pick up the rook. Okay, so there were some neat tactical operations possible. After c4, there was rook takes e7, followed by a3, and then knight takes d5. And I saw a variation of that, but I didn't see exactly that move order or appreciate how strong it was. And then later there was that plan with bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight takes d5, which was very interesting. Queen takes d5, bishop takes c4, going after f7. And that could have led to a unbalanced endgame after all is said and done there. But I just played it more simply, and I think given the time situation, that was probably the right call. I didn't have to make any super difficult decisions, and black just wound up blundering, and from there it was cleaning up with the extra material. This is an intriguing line, though, on the whole, knight c6. I think it works out better against the Tarrasch, knight d2, but you've been seeing it more often here. Like Badur Jobava, the Georgian grandmaster, is one guy who plays this line from time to time for black. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Talk to you guys later. Bye.